Mississippi's admitting privileges law is part of a nationwide strategy. In Texas, about 1/3 of the state's abortion clinics were forced to close when they could not gain privileges or comply with other restrictions passed in 2013. MSNBC's Erin Carmon recently traveled to the Rio Grande Valley to see the impact of the closures of the valley's 2 reproductive health clinics. She visited San Juan, where Planned Parenthood has set up a once-a-week clinic to provide contraceptive and other care. She writes of 2 women at the clinic, quote, "It had taken both of them months of calling to get an appointment at the clinic. That Wednesday morning, a 4-hour wait past the scheduled time to see the single nurse practitioner wasn't a surprise. The women patiently juggled each other's babies on their laps. Quiero cuidarme, they said of their need for birth control. I want to take care of myself. Much as they've tried, they haven't always been able to do that. One woman at the clinic has 9 children. Both Claudia and Marlena want to get their tubes tied, but neither can afford it. I've been on the waiting list for 2 years, Marlena said." Carmon also visited a flea market in Alamo, Texas that allegedly once had a thriving illegal pharmaceutical drug trade before it was raided by sheriffs last year. Women's health experts had expected that women would go to the flea market for birth control as well as medication abortion pills after the clinics closed. She also took a trip across the border to the Mexican town of Nuevo Progreso. There, pharmacies lined the streets selling drugs like Viagra and the abortion pill misoprostol over the counter. It is a destination for Texas residents looking for cheaper, easier way to get pharmaceuticals than they can get in the U.S. Marcus, what did these reports tell us about what's happened after these laws have passed?
Well, these are obviously deeply disturbing reports. To hear that American women have to cross an international border to get what they feel like they can't get here is obviously deeply disturbing. I think there are 2 national questions politically that are raised. Well, the first may be more of a legal question, which is, at one point, will the Supreme Court say these state impediments to a woman's ability to get an abortion actually represent illegal actions? At what point will they say these restrictions are so much that you're actually stripping away a woman's constitutionally given right to an abortion? That's one big question I think many of us are asking, and that's of national import. The second question is, politically, it looks like we're creating this kind of divided United States, not unlike what we're doing with gay marriage rights, in which there are rights you have in some states and rights you don't have in others. And it's not as simple as just southern states, because we saw on your map you put up earlier that these laws go all the way up to the Canadian border in essence.
Go ahead, Connie.
What's happening in Texas and in Mississippi is, I think, a crystal clear and really painful demonstration of the American reality, which is that racism and sexism often go hand in hand. Whenever you see racism, if you take a second look, you will also find sexism there. And whenever you see sexism, you take a second look and you will also find white supremacy and racism. And that is exactly what is happening here. These laws don't just target women, they target women of color. The laws in the Rio Grande Valley target women who can't go to a hospital when they have complications from an illegal abortion. They can't go to a hospital to get life-saving treatment because they're afraid of being deported. And the laws in Mississippi target women who don't have the economic means to just get up and go to a state 240 miles away where abortion is accessible, and those women are disproportionately likely to be African American. So these laws don't just target women, they target women of color. And frankly, the Republicans in the legislature in Mississippi and Texas ought to be ashamed of themselves.
But politically, in these states, these legislatures are allowed to do this because politically they're not being turned out of office because of these measures.
No,
so politically, in these states, they stand.
That's true, but they are making policy that represent the worst and most corrosive elements of American culture in policy form.
Well, Amanda, the same court that will rule on the Mississippi law upheld the Texas admitting privileges law as constitutional. And the judge said in part, let me read this to you, if the admitting privileges regulation burdens abortion access by diminishing the number of doctors who will perform abortions and requiring women to travel farther, the burden does not fall on the vast majority of Texas women seeking abortions. I mean, is that true? And even if it is true, is that, or should that be the standard?
Well, we obviously disagree with the court's reasoning in that decision. And I think what these reports really suggest and show is that it's time to call the bluff of the politicians that pushed HB 2, this measure that is really leaving large swaths of Texas without access to a safe and legal abortion provider. It's time to call their bluff. This measure is doing the exact opposite of what they said it would do. It's really putting women's health at risk.
Can I
sure,
just chime in on the evidence-based of regulations that should improve the quality of services. The reality is admitting privileges don't affect the quality of care for women, in that the majority of abortions, well, abortion in general is extremely safe. Less than 1% of abortions ever have a complication requiring hospitalization. And even if it does, the kind of algorithm of how emergent care plays out is when an ambulance picks a patient up at an ambulatory setting, they will go to the closest hospital on an emergent basis. That's irrelevant to whether or not the doctor has privileges there. So again, there should be an evidence basis. If we're going to change the regulations under the guise of safety, let's have it linked to evidence. There's no evidence that these laws affect the quality of care for women.
Dr. Parker, before we go, will we see a return to the pre-Roe days, or are we already there?
Well, I don't know. I know we're there in terms of women have always been willing to do what they need to do to make an abortion happen. And so right now we're not there in that, in the way that the deaths went away when abortion was legal. When abortion becomes illegal, or practically for all purposes illegal, women will continue to take desperate measures.
You said that we're already there. Do you agree? You agree?
God, I hope
quickly.
Not. I hope not.
Dr. Willie Parker, Chloe Angel, and Amanda Allen, thanks. Marcus is sticking around. Coming up, the subject's so hot right now, it's already spawned 3 bestsellers. We'll be right back.